This is The Rundown, your weekly news and review from Western Mass. I'm Carrie Saldo. It is July 31st. Running things down with me this week, Kevin Moran, the executive editor of the Berkshire Eagle. Jim Kinney, reporter from the Springfield Republican newspaper. And executive editor from NEPM's newsroom, Elizabeth Roman. Good morning. Welcome, everybody. Love the waves. Kevin Moran. Reminding me that folks can check us out on YouTube if you want to put faces to voices. If you have something to say, email therundown@nepm.org. Later in the show, the Berkshire Museum reopens after a renovation, and we will ask the question, is its once controversial art sale firmly in the rear view? But first, health concerns are being raised by area residents relative to cell towers, gas plants, and our waterways, which leads me to our first headline this week on a reporting from Jim Kinney of the Springfield Republican. Headline: water doesn't automatically clean up once it crosses the border. Connecticut lawmakers urge lawsuit to stop mass sewage. Quoting here, Jim Kinney. A Connecticut lawmaker exasperated by sewage overflowing from Massachusetts across the border is asking her state's attorney general to sue and stop the flow. Following a sudden rainstorm last week, sewage plants in Massachusetts released 17.5 million gallons of combined sewage overflow. Jim Kinney, this is not the first time that we have seen sewage overflows into the Connecticut River, but what do you think was different about this time where we saw this lawmaker push back?
It was particularly gross.
Give us the gory details, Jim.
Or don't.
There's a very nice facility in Agawam called the Springfield Yacht and Canoe Club, and they woke up one morning to a deposit of
It's a very tactful way to say.
Of human waste and garbage that had somehow gotten into the stream. Diapers, condoms, all sorts of
we're laughing here, but these have significant health
and
implications for people where they come in contact with them. But from a reporter's perspective, what a sweet call to get. Hey, we're headed to the yacht club for some reporting, and yet.
Yeah. The Springfield Water and Sewer Commission went in and cleaned it. And this has been an ongoing issue for 30 years where not just the Springfield facility on Bondi's Island in Agawam, but the Holyoke and Chicopee facilities have spent millions to try and stop this combined sewage overflow. What the problem is that the storm drains are connected to the household septic. So when it rains very suddenly, which we see a lot more of these days, everything gets overwhelmed. The water has to go somewhere.
The system that's meant to, remove the waste can't keep up with it.
Exactly.
And in digging into this, doing a little bit of research, I learned that we don't typically, speaking broadly, these combined systems don't really get built anymore. However, if you look at the federal government statistics on this and you look at a map of the Northeast, there are a ton of them clustered in our region of these particular types. Now, unfortunately, the information on the EPA's website says that map was from 2004. So it's not exactly clear to me how many of those have been maybe decommissioned and new facilities built, or upgraded facilities like we've seen in Pittsfield, Kevin, or to your point, Jim, where a lot of money has been spent to try and rectify the problem. But to quote you again, it's a long-standing gripe in Massachusetts and Connecticut. Sewer systems in many older Pioneer Valley cities and towns were built to take both sanitary waste from homes and bathrooms and stormwater from city sewers. And as you explained, this combined overage is a real big problem. But Connecticut Attorney General William Tong has now been appealed to by this legislator. Any sense if he will for certain take this step to file a lawsuit?
They're not happy. They might. Connecticut has a long-standing issue with this and has gone at Massachusetts communities repeatedly over the years. There's been a lot of progress made. One of the things that came out of the Sewer Commission meeting this week is the opinion that they're at a point now where they've done the easy solutions and everything now is a lot of money for a relatively small incremental improvement. And there's a lot of projects on the drawing board. They're meeting soon with the EPA that could loosen up some funding. And that's where we are.
Yeah. You said came out of the sewer, and I think I've watched too much Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles because I immediately had a vision of that. Liz, this has been happening for a long time in Springfield.
Yeah.
What do you make of this?
I mean, I grew up in the North End, which is right in the Plainfield area where the river runs right by it. And my immediate thought was like, oh my God, everybody fished there. People still fish there on the West Springfield side, on the Springfield side. My friends and I in Chicopee have pictures of us with fish coming out of the water. And there's signs everywhere saying that there's PCBs, but people eat the fish. So that was really disturbing to me. And then also, I don't know if it was my generation, but I just grew up it being drilled into me. You do not put, there was also tampons in there. So like you don't put that in the sewer, you don't put, or in the toilet, you don't put diapers in there. And how do you even get a diaper down there? The whole thing was very disgusting, but it did make me think like people do use that waterway. They go out there, you have like the Pioneer Valley Rowing Club that goes out there and is on the waterway. So I don't know. It was really it's disgusting and awful. And the fact that 30 years, I mean, I'm 42 and it's been happening probably most of my life that they've been trying to clean it and it hasn't happened. So it's discouraging for sure.
And of course, Connecticut upset because they're directly downriver from
Right.
all of this, right? So in response, when the Attorney General released a statement that you quoted, it said, last December, we joined with other state leaders in urging the Environmental Protection Agency to act. The EPA responded in January, acknowledging the problem and its responsibility to address it. We continue to work with the State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection and the EPA to protect the Connecticut River. It was interesting to hear that they're continuing to work with the federal government because under the Trump administration, we have seen so many rollbacks of protections like Clean Air and Clean Water Act. So Connecticut, though, still hopeful and optimistic that they can work with the federal government to help make this better, I'm assuming, as well as the communities here in Massachusetts. Kevin, what do you make of this? Like I mentioned earlier, Pittsfield spent a lot of money 3 years ago to upgrade its water and sewer plant. How are things going there?
Well, several years ago, Pittsfield actually went to battle against the federal government because, frankly, it really didn't have all the money. And we're talking these repairs to repair sewer treatment plants are in the tens of millions of dollars.
Pittsfield spent $70 million?
$70 million, and they didn't do the complete job that they had to do. They held off some. Now, of course, you don't want to be downstream of, a sewage discharge, but you also don't want to be downwind of a sewage plant when things go wrong. And right now, that's actually a problem in Pittsfield. In June, neighbors downwind of the repaired sewer plant were complaining that they were getting a really bad odor there. Turns out one of the digesters wasn't digesting very well.
That's the mechanism that literally chews up the enzymes, break down the waste.
Yeah.
I know all about that from a story you assigned me as a cub reporter, Kevin Moran.
Well, hey, you got to start somewhere. And you got to end somewhere, too.
Exactly.
So, one of the things is and right now, actually, the work that Pittsfield didn't do, they still have $15 million in upgrades that they're looking to do. And clearly, they're doing some repairs here to, tamp down that smell. So, it's not a pleasant business. It's a smelly one, and it can be, really environmentally disastrous.
But vital for human health and safety.
Absolutely.
Jim, where does this go from here?
Well, the Springfield area sewer and water folks have some meetings with the EPA. Tong says he's going to be following all of this. It's clean now. It tends to be a summer storm problem. But it's just going to take an awful lot of money, probably from the feds, to really make a lot of progress here.
Well, you'll be on top of it with the Springfield Republican. Next headline, Massachusetts highest court says Pittsfield doesn't have authority to force a shutdown of a cell tower. This was reporting from the Berkshire Eagle's Catherine Brennan, quoting her work. The state's highest court has rejected efforts by residents of a city neighborhood to shut down a Verizon cell tower amid concerns about negative health effects. In an opinion released Thursday, the Supreme Judicial Court ruled that federal law overrides a Pittsfield Board of Health order calling the cell tower a, quote, public nuisance. The decision caps a years-long battle over whether the city has the power to order Verizon to take the tower offline in response to complaints from nearby residents of headaches, nausea, insomnia, and dizziness. Now, many neighbors, Kevin said, who are living in underneath the 115-foot cell tower have opposed this right from the jump. Give us some of the history here.
Yeah, back in 2020, a cell tower went up in a section of Pittsfield, very unpopular with residents. Now, cell tower siting, of course, involves various jurisdictions. I mean, there's your local city jurisdiction, there's the your neighborhood concerns, but it also works at a higher level, on the federal level, with federal communications and things like that. Neighbors were very opposed to this cell tower, and the cell tower went up. The residents were upset. They said that their health was aggravated. Certain health effects affected them, as you listed. They fought this. They brought their concerns to the Board of Health. The Board of Health went to bat for them. Turns out, this latest ruling here, the state's highest court here, just ruled last Thursday that actually this is not a jurisdictional issue that you can handle at this particular level. You actually have to take it to your complaint to the Federal Communications Commission and argue against having that cell tower there in Pittsfield.
And there have been, through the years, some measurements of the noise. The Berkshire Eagle pointed out a 2021 report found that all measurements were well below the FCC's public standard for measured exposure levels. But as yet, as I mentioned earlier, the neighbors are raising these health concerns. Kevin, what have residents said in reaction to the court's decision?
Well, they're not happy, obviously. And they say, that still basically the measurements are not substantiating what they're actually feeling at the ground level and what they're experiencing at the ground level. Their attorney remains resolute. He's still interested in sort of pursuing this at various things. It may not be a legal challenge here, but it may be some discussion with FCC. Well, I'm going to have to see what the next move is for them.
Yeah. Courtney Gilardi told your reporter, she was a plaintiff in the case, quote, "My heart breaks for my children and my neighbors who have suffered physically, emotionally, and financially because of Verizon's cell tower. We had both cell service and healthy children and neighbors before the tower. Now we just have cell service." Now, Verizon, for its part, has said this is allowable, obviously, per the courts, and below what the FCC says is detrimental. So they're in the clear here. That's their stance, I imagine.
Yeah, and that's their stance, and they will also maintain that they have cell towers elsewhere that don't have similar effects upon certain neighborhoods.
Yeah, cell towers, unfortunately, are a part of human life. Liz, what stands out for you in this reporting?
I just went and looked up immediately how many cell towers Springfield has. I was like, I wonder how many we have in the city, which we've got like over 300. And Pittsfield has a ton too. The data I got said 177. So to your point, like there's this one neighborhood, which then made me wonder, is the neighborhood an affluent neighborhood? Like what is it about the neighborhood that did they have the funds to be able to get a lawyer to be able to fight this, whereas other neighborhoods in underprivileged areas don't have the same ability to do that? And then it made me think about equity and access to broadband and internet, like where they were getting cell service, but were people around them that are accessing this tower now getting that service? I don't know. A lot of thoughts.
Oh yeah,
a
a very layered situation. Jim Kinney?
This seems like an issue that's been going on for 30 years as well. Because I remember every planning board spent years with this fight, and then it kind of subsided. I think they built a bunch of them.
How many Frankenpine issues, that sort of faux tree situation?
I covered a board one time where they both wanted the Frankenpine, and it was close enough to the airport that it had to have the warning light on it. The chairwoman leaned back and said, "How festive."
All right. Well, Kevin, as you said, this might not be a done deal. We'll keep looking in the Berkshire Eagle. Still here to come on the rundown. How are the recent renovations of the Berkshire Museum being received years after the art sale that helped foot that bill? And our panel's thoughts on Massachusetts' first congressional district, which the participants are going to square off in a debate ahead of the September primary. Stay here. You are listening to The Rundown on 88.5 NEPM. I'm Carrie Saldo. We'll be right back.
The Rundown with Carrie Saldo podcast is funded by Armbrook Village Senior Living in Westfield, with support services designed to help seniors age in place, including a Compass Memory Support Neighborhood. More at armbrookvillage.com.
Welcome back to the Rundown here on 88.5 NEPM. I am Carrie Saldo, joined in studio by journalists Kevin Moran, Jim Kinney, and Elizabeth Roman. Let's get right back into it. The headline: 2 different sets of neighbors, liquefied natural gas sites hum strikes sour note for Wilbraham and Charlton. Are Mass DEP and Eversource listening? All right, Jim, you wrote about this issue in Wilbraham last week. A little bit from the story: a loud, persistent humming, some blame a Eversource natural gas facility in nearby Ludlow, has neighbors around Mountain Road in Wilbraham buzzing. In response to the complaint, state environmental and public health authorities have promised to send out a new team of investigators with fresh monitoring equipment in early August. And then this week in Charlton, some of the neighbors who read your story about Wilbraham got in touch and said, hey, look, we live outside here in Worcester County, just north of Southridge, this section, Charlton. But they're having similar complaints about a Northeast Energy Center, liquefied natural gas plant. The town health director has said that the town has been aware of this issue for years. Before we get into the story, we do have an audio clip of the sound that was captured in Wilbraham. And I have to say, I find this ear-splitting, but everyone else can listen and decide for themselves. Yikes. It just rough to listen to. And people are living next to this. And there's a YouTube channel that shows all hours of the night they're hearing a variation of this noise. The Charlton residents that contacted you when they read about your Wilbraham coverage, they obviously said they've been contending with this for years. How did you become aware of the issue first in Wilbraham?
We heard from a reader, somebody who had some connections to the paper, and he had been going back and forth. One of the interesting things is I started working on the story, making phone calls to legislators in the towns, and then he got a call from state DEP saying, hey, we have that equipment to measure the sound. We might be coming out in a week. Wacky coincidence.
The power of the press and the people.
Yeah. So as this has been unfolding from the files of, excellent job reporting a noise for a print story, Jim Kinney, you asked the neighbors to describe the noise, and they came up with like a leaf blower, not quite a rumble, an ongoing drone, a fan or a pump motor with worn out bearings, like living next door to a food truck generator. This all sounds incredibly frustrating. Some residents, as you say, have complained to the Department of Environmental Protection. What has DEP said?
They have disciplined and are working with the plant in Charlton. They have not done anything with the plant in Ludlow yet, but there's been paperwork that goes back and forth. One of the issues is there's no real teeth to this. They can't go in and shut the thing down. They can send letters, you're out of compliance. And
because there are sound standards.
There are sound standards and lower sound standards for what's called a pure tone, which is something like that.
That we listened to just a few moments ago.
Yeah, you could go louder for something that would be more intermittent, like a banging or something that wouldn't burrow into your skull like that. I did hear from one person who had read the Wilbraham story, and he had made medical appointments. He thought it was on his head.
Wow. Yeah. And the World Health Organization does say that there are real impacts on human health. In fact, the EPA website says that human health problems related to noise, including stress-related illnesses, high blood pressure, speech interference, hearing loss, sleep disruption, and loss of productivity are among the issues that can fall out from this. For its part, as I read in your reporting, Eversource is saying, well, we haven't quite pinpointed if it's us, where it's us. A little bit different story in Charlton, where they've actually done some insulating of some of the components, the compressors, other elements. Liz, we're just adjacent to I-91 here at the NEPM studios. I'm highly aware of noise every time we set foot outside of here.
Yeah.
You grew up in the city of Springfield, lots of noise around you all the time. When you read this story, what do you make of it?
I mean, I welcome the ambulances and the construction and the,
Feels like
music
home.
out of the building. Like, that's not really an issue, but that's also not constant, right? You have an ambulance drive by and then it's done and you move on with your day. But I mean, people saying that they have to keep fans on all day or the air conditioner on all day to keep the sound out. The immediate thought is like, you move to a community like Wilbraham for quality of life, right? You're moving into a suburban community. You expect it to be quiet and kind of chill. And then you have this thing that's just buzzing in your head. I couldn't even tolerate it for the 10 seconds that we listened to it. So I really feel for them. And I think, I think Eversource, we have many gripes in Springfield with Eversource as well, but this one I think they need to deal with.
Kevin, are you now sniffing around in the Berkshires for potential areas where there are noise disturbances you're about to send your reporters to?
Yeah, no. I mean, that's an alarming thing, especially to hear that kind of buzz against the birdsong. Heard a few chirps in there.
It also impacts wildlife, too, from what I read in my research.
I can only imagine that it would certainly, be a negative thing for that neighborhood.
Yeah,
I also didn't know what a liquefied natural gas plant was, so I learned a thing or two just from looking that up.
One of the weird sound is so weird. I swear to you, it sounded worse in that man's backyard than it did when I stood at the plant gate.
Wow.
The way sound bounces.
Yeah.
And to your point, Liz, what I learned about liquefied natural gas plants, it's sort of a key point in the process of taking the natural gas and making it usable for our energy sources. Well, you'll be sure to keep watching this issue, Jim, for us here.
And listening.
Exactly. Headline, there's no comparison. Berkshire Museum visitors awed by redesigned exhibits. This, a Berkshire Eagle reporter, former NEPM intern, Tara Montesis, reported after a year and a half of renovations, did the Berkshire Museum's highly anticipated reopening live up to expectations? The visitors who filled the redesigned museum Wednesday had a clear answer. Yes. Kevin, tell us more about the changes at the museum.
Well, and first of all, 10 years ago, there was a big controversy surrounding this whole thing because the Berkshire Museum, the idea there was to sell off some of its art to generate a lot more money to do a renovation. The renovation that was conceived of at the time was pretty unpopular because it was pretty outlandish. What visitors this past week, when the museum reopened on Wednesday, saw was a museum that seemed to be far more connected to its own community rather than something that was more otherworldly, so to speak, here. Now, that doesn't mean there aren't otherworldly exhibits at the museum itself. One of the cool things about a particular exhibit that's at the Berkshire Museum is that there's a ceiling of the night sky, which sort of hovers over, a big giant illuminated globe. But that ceiling of the night sky is the night sky that's over the Berkshires.
Wow, so you can go to the museum and see what it would look like if you didn't have lights on outside of your house.
Exactly. But the reviews so far are very positive. They put more than $12 million into this renovation. The museum's been closed for a year and a half to get this kind of work. They've brought out a lot of pieces from its basement. As a matter of fact, one of the curators there said they had so much stuff that they really didn't exactly know what they've had in sum total, and they're still kind of going through all that. But they're bringing some of those curiosities out of the basement, and they've combined them in such a way where I think it speaks to sort of the local nature, but it also sort of the eclectic aspect of the collection that Zenas Crane made the museum out of.
The founder of the museum back in 1901, if I remember the history correctly.
You are correct.
I remember being in the Berkshire Eagle newsroom working on this story 9 years ago, and that was one of the things that I walked away with when they announced this very controversial sale of these artworks. At first it was going to be 40, then it was 22. The state got involved. It was very controversial. But what I learned, one of the things was how many pieces in a collection, in a museum's collection, actually are held in storage and outside of public view. I did think it was interesting that the Eagle editorialized this week, a bright new day at the Berkshire Museum. And the art sale is called deaccessioning. That was a word we used a lot 9 years ago. It basically means the museum decides to sell off parts of its collection, and there's a very technical process. While we opposed the deaccessioning today, the editorial says, while we oppose the deaccessioning, today is not about painful parts of the past we can't change, but rather about forging the brightest possible future for the museum at the heart of Berkshire County. Its reimagined halls hold pieces of our community's history as well as enrichment opportunities for families, young and old, a new lease on life for a vital local institution. Kevin, journalists sometimes get criticized, we're digging for a story, we're too negative, we're looking to stir up controversy. Why was it important for the Eagle to say, look, we opposed it then, but here's how we see it now?
Well, the deaccessioning back then, it's not, the Berkshire Museum hadn't been the first museum to sell some of its art, but especially at the time, it was regarded as this is not what you do in the artistic world, and a lot of people came opposed to that. Since then, I will say that museums all across the country, and I don't know how many, but many more museums have used deaccessioning as a way to sustain their own future, to take things out of the basement and to, say, dispose of them. What was not popular here was the fact that you're getting rid of 2 Rockwells, paintings and things like that.
But to the museum's point, they were trying to raise upwards of $50 million with the sale of these artworks. They did that and then some. They sold about half of the paintings they initially had intended to sell, and the $12 million came from that pot of money. But the rest of it, as I understand it, is in an endowment to help support the museum into the future.
Yeah, the argument at the time was the museum was saying, look, if we don't do something, we're not going to be here. We'll have a great collection.
Nobody to see it.
With nobody to see it.
Yeah.
And so, what I think at the end, it was a very painful time, I think, for Berkshire County as well. But what we're seeing now is really a level-headed, more clear-headed thinking of how to present this. And it sure took the sale of art to get them this way, and what do you know? People really like it.
The next steps here, if you want to check out the renovations for yourself, you can head to the museum's free community reopening celebration that is set for August 8th. All right, moving us on. Congressman Neal set to debate Whalen. This after Neal's choice not to participate in a candidate forum. Liz, this was reporting from Karen Brown and Kari Njiri in the NEPM newsroom. Western Massachusetts congressional candidate Jeremy Whalen says he's glad for the opportunity to debate incumbent U.S. Richard Neal, but frustrated by the timing. Neal had refused to take part in a community forum in mid-August organized by dozens of organizers, but has instead agreed to a televised primary debate on WWLP TV with Whalen on August 26th. Why is Whalen frustrated, Liz?
I think because the forum was organized by like 40 community organizations. Neal said, "I'm not going to do it." There's a couple people in that organization that have funded his campaign or have openly supported him, and so he didn't want to participate in that. The organizers are now saying, "Well, Nexstar, which owns WWLP, they have a PAC that supported Neal in 2020 against Morris and spent quite a bit of money, $5,000." So I think Whalen's frustration is he wants to do. 22 is a 30-minute debate. It's very structured. I think he wants to be seen. He's very comfortable with the people and having a forum that's by the people. I think he felt would be a better way to engage with the public and the voters. Neal says, "I'm out in the community. I'm doing the work already. This is the debate I'm willing to do, and we take it or leave it." And I think he took it. So
now here we're talking about the Democratic candidates ahead of a primary. There's also an independent in this race, Nadia Milleron, who's actually based out of the Berkshires. She's also running, but she heads right to the general election ballot. Jim Kinney, what did you make about Neal's stance here, and what do you think it says about the power of the incumbency?
He doesn't want to give the opponent any oxygen in this.
Why would you, though?
Why would you? But you have to balance that with not having to defend that decision constantly. Eventually, it just becomes easier to do it than to talk about why you're not doing it.
For his part, Neal said that the debate is, quote, part of a full summer schedule that includes events in all 4 counties of the district. Well, voters can look ahead to this. The televised debate is set for August 26th, and that candidate forum we talked about is set for August 11th at the Performing Arts venue at 52 Summer Avenue in Springfield. That is our show for today. I want to thank our panelists, Kevin Moran, Jim Kinney, and Elizabeth Roman.
Thank you.
Kara Foster on the board, Lex Edwards on our digital production this morning. I'm Carrie Saldo. You have been listening to The Rundown here on 88.5 NEPM. Go out and make it a great one, everybody.